Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So last class, what we had done was the part of the esophagus and different functions of esophagus, and we had also looked at videos and how the swallowing works as such. What are the different parts of those pharynx region? That's what we had looked at. The next organ within the digestive system or throughout the alimentary canal is stomach. Now, again, basic information you might be already aware of it. In case of stomach, it's a J-shaped and distensible organ. Distensible, that means it's a kind of elastic in nature so that it can increase in size. So that's distensible. It's placed obliquely on the left side behind the diaphragm. So if you look at this particular, it's placed obliquely as in it's not straight. One end it is little forward compared to or to more towards the central side compared to this end of the stomach. So that's how this stomach is placed, and it is behind the diaphragm. So diaphragm is the region which separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity, and your stomach is right neck behind this diaphragm. It has a greater curvature on the lower side and lesser curvature on the upper side. So again, greater curvature because this is like more and elongated, and this one is the lower curvature from the inner side. Yeah, so that's the upper side. Lower lesser curvature on the upper side. This is the lesser curvature on the upper side of the stomach. Upside because it actually faces up, and this is down. So that is why upper side and lower side, or this is greater curvature and this is lesser curvature. The folds of the peritoneum holds the stomach. Peritoneum is layer within the stomach, holds the stomach to the posterior abdominal wall called greater omentum. Now, greater omentum is another layer, so or the foldings within the stomach. So, these kind of folds of peritoneum, it holds the stomach to the posterior abdominal wall. Posterior is behind. So, on the back side, wherever the abdominal wall is, that particular fold which is holding whole of the stomach structure is called as greater omentum. So that's then in general, your stomach is divided into three different parts: your cardiac, body, and the pylora. So these are the three parts, or what is also known as these cardiac and fundus. Sometimes they are separated, but usually cardiac is one region, body is the second region, and the pylori or the pyloric region. These are the three different parts of the stomach. uh, Now someone had asked me, I guess Pratham, why is it called cardiac? So I looked at this particular answer. Cardiac, it refers to the particular region. There is a like whole document with respect to why it is called cardiac. I will just share it with you later. But yeah, it has nothing more significant than the name or the meaning of this name cardiac. It comes from that Latin or Greek word, and which means the upper part of the organ, any organ structure. Uh, Sorry, the lower part of the any organ structure. So that is why it is called cardiac. uh, and also the cardiac in terms of heart and the cardiac in terms of stomach, they are relatively same term, but they are structurally different organs altogether. So just the name is same, but otherwise nothing is similar in between them. So that's how this name has been there. So cardiac, it is the left broad upper part where the esophagus opens in it, and it opens at a like a sphincter, or it opens at a at an opening. So esophagus, which is like the food pipe, enters into the stomach at cardiac aperture, or what is also called as cardia. Cardiac aperture stands for a hole-like structure. or opening like structure from the tube. So that is cardiac aperture, or what is also known as cardia. This cardiac aperture is guarded by cardiac sphincter, or it is also called as gastroesophageal sphincter. Gastro refers to your stomach region, esophagus sphincter. So the sphincter which is at the junction between stomach and esophagus, that is gastroesophageal sphincter. Now again, if you go at the diagram, this is your esophagus in kind of green, and the cardiac region, that's where the our stomach region starts. So this particular junction between the esophagus and the stomach is called as gastroesophageal sphincter, or it is also called as your cardiac sphincter. Yeah. And the cardiac aperture or cardia is the region within the stomach. This is the cardiac aperture where the esophagus enters. Now, the function of this particular sphincter is not to allow the food which is incoming inside the stomach to let it flow back. This sphincter is like a, how can I say? Yeah, if you have a balloon, like if you just blow the air inside the balloon and if you just hold it, so hold it without tying a knot or something. So what happens at that particular region where you are holding, the balloon is getting stretched. So that's when it's the same analogy in case of the muscles in the cardiac sphincter also. So when those muscles at the sphincters they contract, they close the opening to the stomach, and whenever the food is incoming, it opens up and it again goes back to its contraction, so that the sphincter is always closed. So it keeps the regurgitation of the food in check. Regurgitation is actually the reflux of the food from the stomach into the esophagus. So that is regurgitation. So there is this biological word which means the reflux of the food, or it is also called as regurgitation of the food. So that's the cardiac region and the aperture and the sphincters present in the cardiac region of the stomach. Second part is the fundus. This is the upper projected part of the cardiac stomach that extends beyond the cardiac aperture, and this is usually filled with air or gas. Now, sorry, yeah, this particular region, it is little elevated. Now this, if this is the aperture or this is the cardiac region, this fundus has, it is level above this cardiac region. The reason is because whatever gases they are produced in stomach, they go and accumulate in this fundus region. Because of this elevation, it acts like a air sac on the top, and that is where the gases accumulate. So whenever you have a gas problem in stomach, that is with respect to the fundus in the stomach region. So that's your fundus. It is filled with either air normally or gas, whichever is generated throughout this process of digestion. uh, uh, Usually it is not much of a gas, or it is not much of a, air also present inside. It's only if you, while swallowing, whatever air is going in, that's the most, and whatever because of the digestion, whatever gases are being produced, that's the only amount, but they are not really significant amount compared to the total size of stomach. So that is when normally there are not much of air or not much of gas. But in case of some stomach problems, or if you are like eating something which generates lots of gas, for example, like sometimes sprouts, not exactly sprouts, but chana, what is known as chickpeas. So these kind of materials, they produce lot of gases in general, and they tend to accumulate in the stomach area, which is fundus. Then second part, the actually second part after cardiac is the body, or what is also known as corpus. Corpus again refers to the main area of the any organ. So you would have seen corpus in many other organs as well. So body or corpus refers to the main portion. So this is the middle part of the stomach, and which is the most like larger part within the stomach. So this particular part is the body in the stomach. Major function of body is to allow this what is called as mixing of the gastric juices and allowing the surface of this gastric acid to be mixed with the food content whatever we are eating. So that's the body, and the last part is your pylori or pyloric part. This is a lower narrow part of the stomach which opens into duodenum. So that's where your small intestine starts. So this particular junction is between stomach and the duodenum. That last part is called as pylori, and it is regulated by. So this end is called as pyloric aperture. Again, aperture refers to the opening because this pylori region is opening into the duodenum. This is pyloric aperture, and this pyloric aperture has a sphincter, which is again a muscular wing-like structure or circular muscles which are present, and they control the entry or exit of the food from stomach into the duodenum and does not allow the food to come back from duodenum into the stomach. So that's what is pyloric sphincter. This usually prevents the pre-digested food to enter the duodenum, and it does not even allow the undigested food just to enter the duodenum. It allows sufficient time to be in stomach, and then only it opens up. So pyloric stomach is differentiated into pyloric antrum and pyloric canal. Antrum is again like empty space, and canal is a tube-like structure. So the end part is your pyloric canal, and this opening before the opening of the stomach into the duodenum, that's your uh, antrum structure, antrum and canal. Inner surface of the mucosa of stomach. So we will see the histology of the alimentary canal. There we will see different layers which are present in the walls of this esophagus, stomach, small intestine and large intestine. So that's where one of the layer of these lining of the alimentary canal is mucosa, and same is throughout the same like throughout the alimentary canal. So even in stomach, this mucosa layer is raised into large number of longitudinal folds. Longitudinal folds is like the inward growth is extended so that it allows more surface area for like the digestion to occur. And these longitudinal folds inside the stomach, they are called as gastric ruggi. This it's like literally what your U-shaped structures extending inward from the wall of the stomach. These structures, they dilate the stomach to store more food. So whenever stomach, like whenever you overeat specifically, this ragi, they dilate so that the stomach can store more food and increase in the surface area for the digestion. So that is the purpose of this ragi. So that's about the stomach as such. Uh, it consists of two types of sphincter muscles, rather two sphincters. These sphincters, they are usually the circular muscle fibers arranged around any opening. Throughout like the stomach, at the start and at the end, there are these two openings, and these can be closed or opened based on the contraction and relaxation of the muscles. So these are of two type usually, rather they are of two different kinds. One is cardiac sphincter, which is present at the opening from the gullet to the stomach region, or specifically the cardiac region of the stomach, and the pyloric sphincter, which is at the end of the stomach, and it's like opening from the pyloric stomach into the duodenum. So these are the only two sphincters present in the stomach region. uh, any questions in the structural part? Then we'll look at the function quickly. Anyone has any question? This is relatively very simple. Uh, like especially the structural aspects, what you need to remember is only the different parts, but again those names are comparatively simple. Okay, so going forward with respect to the functions, uh, now again you are very much aware of these different functions of the stomach, but again to revise them, stomach stores the food until it is partially digested. Now, how does it do that? Stomach secretes, or the stomach layers secretes different gastric juices, including the gastric acid. And this acid is responsible for breakdown of the food into smaller particles. And that is how the partial digestion of the food happens inside the stomach. Stomach is also known to secrete the gastric juice to aid in the digestion, which contains gastric amylase, gastric lipase, and proenzymes. Now, amylase, as we have seen earlier, they are responsible for breakdown of starch or carbohydrate-like material. Gastric lipase, they are responsible for breakdown of your lipids, and proenzymes, which are pepsinogen and prorenin. These are responsible for breakdown of proteins and other molecules. Prorenins, they are also responsible for binding with minerals and so on and so forth. So in general, your carbohydrate, fats, as well as proteins, they get digested partially or broken down to a simpler molecule so that they can further get absorbed or chopped further, so that the absorption is easier from the small intestine. So that was the secretion of gastric juice from stomach. Uh, it churns the food. Stomach allows the churning of the food into a fine pulp and mixes with gastric juice. So churning movement of the stomach is actually, it's a kind of, because it is mixing with the gastric acid and gastric juices, it causes fine breakdown of the physical particle as well as the molecular level. So physical particle as in like a rice grain, if it has to be broken down into different pieces, that also happens. Plus whatever is the content of the starch within the rice grain, that starch is also broken down to some extent into like smaller size molecules of the starch. So that's what happens, and that is the reason why it is easier for the stomach to create this fine pulp after mixing it with gastric secretions. And this particular movement of the stomach, which is called churning, it's like a kind of contraction and relaxation of the different regions of the stomach, so that the food keeps on moving. It's a kind of mixer, like how your mixer functions, but just mixer has blades and it moves in a circular fashion. Here it is just the contraction and relaxation of muscles, which allows the food to get mixed properly, and it makes a pulp of it. Water and soluble foods or food ingredients such as sugar, alcohol, aspirin, all of these, uh, they and certain lipid soluble drug, they can directly get absorbed through the stomach wall. Now, because these stomach walls, they have epithelial structure from the inner lining, or there are different regions, different layers within the stomach wall, it is easier for the absorption of the smaller molecules directly from the stomach itself. Now, every organ has a blood supply, so obviously they are capable of absorbing something which is more in the food content. So water can be absorbed. Sugar molecule, that means the smaller carbohydrates like glucose or even sucrose, fructose, all of these molecules which are instant generator of the energy, they can get absorbed. Alcohol, that means your whatever whiskey, rum or beer kind of alcohol. Those alcohols, because they also opens up the pores within the wall of the stomach, they can get easily absorbed. Aspirin, which is your like drug for headache or body ache, aspirin can get absorbed through the stomach, and certain lipid soluble drugs, because there is enough of the mucus which is present on the uh, walls of the stomach. These lipid soluble drugs, they can easily get absorbed as well. Gastric acid kills the bacteria that enter the stomach along with the food. Now, one major function of the gastric acid, apart from digestion of food, is to protect the inner organs, especially the stomach and beyond the stomach, to kill the pathogenic bacteria which are coming inside our body through the medium of the food. So, this gastric acid, because it's highly acidic or almost of the pH 1, gastric acid will kill these bacteria, uh, whichever are coming from outside. And that is how, like stomach or every inside part is like having like no pathogenic bacteria. Endocrine cells in the wall of pyloric stomach. So in the pyloric region of the stomach, there are these endocrine cells, which produces the hormone gastrin. Now gastrin is responsible for stimulation of the secretion of gastric juice by the gastric glands. So in the inner lining of the stomach walls, there are these gastric glands, and their secretion of gastric juice is controlled by the pyloric region of the gastrin. Now you can also imagine why it would be at the end of the stomach. So obviously, whenever you are eating something, the food is going to go and settle down in the lowermost part, and then it will start filling the stomach. So as and when there is a sensation of the food being present in the stomach, especially in the pyloric region, the gastrin will be secreted. Gastrin will in turn act on the walls of the stomach, and then gastric acid or gastric juices will be secreted so that it helps in digestion. This is also with respect to some connection with the salivation. Like whenever you look at some food item which you really like and you literally start drooling over that food, your brain center, which is the hunger center, gets activated. It causes the gastrin to secrete through a nerve impulse, and then gastrin will start secreting the gastric acid and so on. So your stomach feels little acidic. So whenever, so that is actually the function of your appetizers. So whenever you go to a restaurant and you ask for that 5 course meal and the first one is an appetizer, the function of appetizer is actually to allow the gastrin to get secreted, and then gastrin in turn will allow the gastric acid or gastric juices to get secreted. So by the time the food is entering, the appetizer has already asked the stomach to secrete gastric acid, so there is better digestion. Yeah. So that is the function. It also produces, stomach is also known to produce this Cassell's intrinsic factor. Now this Cassell is name of the guy. Intrinsic factors, these are some glycoprotein molecule within the body, and they are like intrinsic. That means they are highly required. That is why they are called as intrinsic factor. There are extrinsic factors as well, which are like not really required and they can be obtained from outside. So, so that's why they are extrinsic. These intrinsic, they are synthesized and required within the body itself. So stomach is known to produce one of such factors, which is called Cassell's intrinsic factor. And this Cassell's intrinsic factor, it helps in absorption of vitamin B12 from the stomach or from the food. Whatever the food is coming inside the stomach, this vitamin B12 will be absorbed with this intrinsic factor. Now, what does intrinsic factor does is, because it's a glycoprotein in nature, it combines physically with this vitamin B12 and it actively gets transported through the walls of the stomach, and that is how the absorption of vitamin B12 happens. Okay, any questions here with respect to the stomach part? I hope this is clear enough. Stomach is also known to be like second line of defense in terms of immunity. First line of defense is your skin and the outermost organs or the layers of the body. So that is your first line of defense. Second line of defense is your internal organs, and gastric juice or the acid which is secreted in the stomach is known to kill, sorry, is known to kill the bacteria whichever are entering through the food. So that is why it is also called a second line of defense organ. Okay, I will move further with the next organ, which is small intestine. Now again, here there is a physical description and there are parts of it and then the function. So in case of physical description, small intestine is usually around 6.25 meter long uh, tube, tubular structure, and it has a diameter of 2.5 centimeter or almost like a 1 inch diameter. This lies in coiled form throughout the abdominal cavity. So it is just stuffed inside so that it can fill in a pouch or a cavity like space, which is the abdominal cavity. Now, this consists of three parts. Small intestine is divided into three parts: duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. Like we are looking at the stomach part, the duodenum is the first part which is attached to the stomach. Like that is the first part in the small intestine. Now, this duodenum is almost 25 centimeter long, and it is one of the shortest part within the whole small intestine. So 25 centimeter long, and it is U-shaped in appearance. I have a diagram like this. Yeah, here it is. So after this stomach region, this particular part, which is U-shaped, that part is called as duodenum. This duodenum is almost 25 centimeter long and U-shaped in appearance. Its descending limb receives the hepatopancreatic ampulla. Now, hepato refers to liver and pancreatic, again pancreas. Ampulla is a structure or a tube-like region. So that is why it is hepatopancreatic pancreatic ampulla. So the descending limb, descending as in decreasing, right? So this is the descending limb, this one, right? So this descending limb of the duodenum is known to receive the hepatopancreatic ampulla of the hepatopancreatic duct by the union of bile duct and pancreatic duct. Now if you look at this diagram again, so this duct which is coming from your liver and one is coming from your pancreas. So this duct is hepatopancreatic duct after the junction from the liver and from the pancreas. They two combine here, that is called as hepatopancreatic duct, and it enters into the hepatopancreatic ampulla, which is the structure in the duodenum, the junction between the duodenum and the hepatopancreatic duct. So that is hepatopancreatic ampulla. So that is the structure. This particular duct is formed by the bile duct and pancreatic duct. Now, bile duct is the bile juice secreted, the duct which carries the bile juice which is secreted from the liver, and the pancreatic juice which is secreted by the pancreas through the pancreatic duct. Both of these secretion they come and they combine into hepatopancreatic duct, and then further they get released into the duodenum part. So that's about duodenum. In case of jejunum, it is 2.5 meter long, so almost half of the total length, almost, not exactly, but yeah, jejunum is 2.5 meter long and 4 centimeter wide. 4 centimeter is almost like 1.5 inch, and it is narrower than the duodenum. So obviously, the duodenum has the diameter lesser and jejunum has the higher. So in case of diameter, it goes on increasing from duodenum. to jejunum to ileum. So the diameter of these regions, they are increasing. So here it is less in case of duodenum. Then the next part is jejunum, which is more, and the last one ileum. It has the diameter of like quite more. It is 3.5. Jejunum is 2.5 centimeter, and here is less than that. So that is how the jejunum looks like. Now the function of jejunum is more just to allow the surface area for the food to get properly mixed with the hepatopancreatic secretion and to get broken down further and to get absorbed from those intestinal walls. Nothing more. Same goes with the ileum. It is 3.5-meter long, and it is the longest part of the small intestine. And as I mentioned earlier, it is 3.5 centimeter in diameter. Its wall is thinner than that of jejunum. Now, jejunum has thicker wall. So, like I mentioned, the food has to get mixed with the hepatopancreatic secretion. On top of this, it will have gastric secretion. So, all these three different secretions, they have to get mixed with the food, and so that whatever pulp was formed in the gastric region, it has to get broken down further so that the absorption is easier. For that, the jejunum provides more surface area and its wall is thicker. Now, the reason for thicker wall is so that the whatever is the action of these enzymes or secretion which are secreted in the hepatopancreatic duct and from the gastric glands, these will not affect the wall much, and that is why the walls are little thicker. In case of ileum, where maximum of the absorption happens of the food, and that is why the walls are thinner compared to the jejunum part. Again, it allows the maximum time for the food to pass through it because of its length, and that is how the absorption is quicker in ileum part. Now, both jejunum and ileum, they are greatly coiled and they occupy the abdominal cavity below the stomach and liver. So, like I showed you in this diagram, below the stomach and below the liver, whole of this abdominal cavity is being occupied by this ileum and jejunum, which are the two longest part of the small intestine. There is a presence of small nodules. Nodules are these roundish outgrowths of the organ. So these small nodules of the lymphatic tissue, they are located along the entire length of intestine. Now, like sometimes, these nodules, if you look at them, they look really weird structures. It's like the outgrowth from the inner walls of the intestine, so that the lymphatic tissue growth can happen within these intestinal walls. And at some places, these nodules are clustered in groups. So groups, as in they are just present like how the grape structure look like, but the grapes are like one below the other, or they are in layers. Here, just within a patch, there will be many nodules like a group, and these patches or these groups, they are called as Peyer's patches or the lymph nodes of the small intestine. Peyer is again someone's name. So these Peyer's patches or the lymph nodes are the groups or clusters of these lymphatic nodes present in the small intestine. Now, function with respect to the small intestine. So again, the dissection of or the different layers of the small intestine walls or small intestine layers, we will see it in general while we study the histology part. But looking at the function of the small intestine, it completes the digestion. So whatever is left after the pulp formation in the stomach, small intestine helps in digesting the rest of the food. So breaking it down further and allowing to get absorbed whatever the digested food is there in the stomach region. it allows the absorption of smaller molecules. It can be again proteins, carbohydrate, fats, vitamins, minerals, or water. All of these, they get absorbed through the small intestinal parts. Now, it is also known to secrete different hormones: cholecystokinin, secretin, enterogastrone, duocrinin, and so on. So you don't have to remember all these names, but just to mention that these hormones, they are in turn regulating the enzymatic activity within the digestive system. Now, for example, cholecystokinin is responsible for digestion of lipids. These will activate the enzymes which break down the lipids further into smaller molecules. And that is how secretin in one of such molecule which will increase the secretion of the like digestive enzymes. So on and so forth. So different hormones which are secreted by the small intestine, they will get secreted because of these different hormones present in the small intestine, and these in turn control the secretion of pancreatic juice, bile juice, and the intestinal juice. So all the different juices, they are being controlled by these different hormones, and these juices, like I mentioned, they are having enzymes. Here I have just mentioned it. We will see this diagram further again in the histology part. But just to show you quickly, this inner walls of the small intestine, they are like folded like this. If you can see here, there is up down, like a wave like structure. And if you look at one particular like trough of these intestinal wall, you can see a smaller microvilli structure which further allows the increase in the surface area of the small intestine from the inner side, and that is how the absorption is more effective because of the more surface area. So that is what is the intestinal walls from inside with the microvilli structure. So these bigger ones, they are called as villi, and the smaller ones, they are called as microvilli. So that's villi and microvilli. Okay, I guess I will take a pause here. Enough for today. Two different organs. Are there any questions? Anyone? I hope this was simple and clear enough.
So, what about the exams?